pride, hugging her supporters. Well, I'll tell you where she was heading. She was heading to our camera, and she's in front of it right now. Dame Jackie Baillie, MSP for Dumbarton once again. Congratulations to you personally for your success in your constituency, but how are you feeling about the day as a whole? Well, we'll have to wait and find out, because we'll have to get whatever sound problem we have there sorted. Inevitably we will in the next couple of minutes. But
Maybe
Douglas
they don't
Ross,
like the question. They just pretend.
wouldn't be the first
pretend to be
Douglas Ross,
real.
you were a champion of that,
I
pretending it was a
messaged them
sound
all
delay
to tell
from
them how
Murray.
to get away with it.
Have you written a handbook on this?
Look blank and just ignore any movement
You see,
or
this is
anything
how
in
it
your
works.
ear. It worked.
You were nodding along to what Bernard was saying.
Yeah, and I think we started to get to in the debates because some of the presenters, BBC debate, STV debate, were pushing the parties, but none of them wanted to step up to the plate and be honest about it. There is a huge fiscal black hole. It needs to be filled, or services will need to be stripped back. And John Swinney now has some difficult decisions to take.
But you've been a party leader. Do you
Yeah.
understand why they might
Of
have not
course,
been completely
of course.
honest about it?
I'm also
I mean,
the-
that'll infuriate our audience.
Yeah. I'm also the party leader that said manifestos are a waste of time because no one ever reads them, but they're important for an election campaign. But I don't put too much onus on them because deals are made very quickly after an election campaign that renders a lot of it pretty much redundant. What I
And
think's-
events, dear boy events,
of course,
as Harold
of course.
Macmillan said.
What I
They
also think is
change everything.
quite interesting is who is going to lead on this issue for John Swinney? He's lost Kate Forbes, he's lost Shona Robeson, so it will be a new minister in charge of these negotiations to get through the first budget. And we know John Swinney is very hands-on with finance, having been finance secretary. So that's going to be a really important appointment for him to make.
Right.
Ivan McKee's interesting, but he's been a junior minister, not served in the cabinet.
OK, Dame Jackie Baillie is back in Dumbarton. I wonder, can you hear me, Jackie Baillie?
That's fine. I don't
No,
mind at all.
no, we've got real gremlins in Dumbarton. We'll get them fixed. Ivan McKee, you were saying. Maybe
No,
the guy-
Bernard suggested that. Ivan obviously supported Kate Forbes for the leadership and, you know, was well regarded by many in the junior finance role, but he's never served in cabinet. So it will be an interesting one. I can imagine someone who's been a cabinet secretary will move into that brief.
OK, let's have another go with Jackie Baillie. Jackie, can you hear me?
I can.
Ah, there she is, Dame Jackie Baillie. Still beaming, still beaming. Listen, congratulations on your personal success.
Always smiling. Thank you very much.
Always smiling. That's it's not true
Thank
what they
you.
say. Congratulations on your personal success in Dumbarton. Returned again, as ever. But listen, I mean, there is a smile on your face, but what do you make of the day as a whole for Labour?
I mean, it's clearly been disappointing, notwithstanding the result here. You know, Anas Sawar led an ambitious campaign. We were hopeful for the change we wanted to see in the country, but unfortunately we lost that argument. So I am disappointed. I have to say that the SNP scored a better result than I would have imagined they would have, given the failure to actually deliver on a number of key policies. But the electorate have spoken, and we need to take cognizance of that.
Yeah, the electorate, as we were discussing earlier, is never wrong. Why weren't they listening to you? What happened? Who do you blame?
So I think, we did have an ambitious programme. We set that out in terms of our manifesto and our campaign. We took those arguments directly onto the streets of Scotland, into every constituency. But the truth is that we were drowned out by a national wave that was coming from elsewhere, and we didn't really get a hearing as a consequence of that. And that's something we will reflect on going forward.
Right, so listen, I want to talk to you now about two leaders. We'll come to Keir Starmer in a second, but this is a bad night, as you say, for Labour in Scotland. Should Anas Sarwar stay on as leader here?
He should absolutely stay on. He led this campaign really effectively. He put his all on the line.
But he
and
didn't,
led it
Jackie
with
Baillie.
heart
You've just
and soul.
told me the electorate
The
didn't listen to you.
But the problem was that there are noises off. We tried to make this campaign entirely about Scotland and the change that Scotland needs. That still remains the case. My disappointment is that the electorate also were listening to what was going on in another government in another place.
What were the noises off? The national argument drowning out the message you were trying to punt.
So I think people were seeing on the news things that were not optimal in terms of the UK government, and I think that was colouring people's perception on the ground. But, do you know, we've always wanted to make this campaign about Scotland. It's about the challenges Scotland faces, and therefore I'm not going to get into a debate about the UK government. But the disappointing thing for me is Scotland still requires that change, but we've missed an opportunity to do so at this election.
You say you don't want to get into a debate about the UK government, but you're effectively eviscerating them right now in this interview. When do you think Sir Keir Starmer should go?
Well, that's well above my pay grade. The issue for me
you can still have an
is
opinion.
holding
When
the
do you
Scottish
think he should
government
go?
to account and making sure, I'm making sure that we deliver for Scotland. That's what interests me. I've just been elected to represent Dumbarton constituency for the 7th occasion in a row. I owe it to them to deliver for them, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
All right, well, listen, we will hear more and see more of you, I'm sure, over the next 5 years. Jackie Baillie, Dame Jackie Baillie, the MSP for Dumbarton, once again. Congratulations. Bernard, you're bursting to come in. Just very quickly, if you can.
That was very measured. What it was really saying was that it was all Keir Starmer's fault. We now know that Ed Miliband approached the Prime Minister and said, you have to come up with a timetable for your resignation. What has happened to Scottish Labour in this election, Welsh Labour, and the thousands of councillors who've lost their seats for the Labour Party will ensure that over the course of the weekend and by early next week, all of the coverage about the narrative of the Prime Minister going will be at fever pitch. I suspect that within not too long, we will get a timetable from Keir Starmer about when he gives up.
Right, well, we shall see. There's a lot of big stuff coming down the track, is there not? But Rebecca Curran, no doubt, will want to digest some of that with her panel at Holyrood. Rebecca.
Indeed, we will, Martin. Thank you very much. And joining me this time is Paul Sinclair, former Labour advisor, Ramsay Jones, former Conservative advisor, and Kirsten Campbell, our political correspondent. Ramsay, I want to start with you. We have got, just 4 constituencies left to be declared, but then we have the all-important list results. What are you going to be looking for?
The big question I've been trying to get to grips with, and maybe Kirsten will be able to help me out, given her great intel and sources, for each party, given their constituency vote, how much of that transfers onto the regional list? So, for example, I think a fairly safe assumption, if you're voting Reform, you're voting Reform across both ballots. Labour, I think, have lacked a regional list strategy. So is their vote going to suffer and be even worse on the list? Be interesting to watch. I think Lib Dems obviously have always had a list strategy. The Conservatives with the peach vote, I think they ran quite well. The peach vote, your secret weapon to try and there. So I think their vote will hold up or even increase potentially on the list. Reform, as we said, straight across. The Greens, do SNP voters who voted SNP in the constituency go Green? And I think Kirsten's got some insight there.
We do have some intelligence from people who are at the count, with the Greens saying that they have more list votes in Glasgow than Labour and think that they can get 2 list MSPs in that region, which would mean us getting Iris Duane elected as well as Patrick Harvie, which would be a historic moment for the Scottish Parliament because it would mean the first trans woman ever to be elected in Scotland. And my colleague Phil Sim is saying that there does seem to be a huge movement of SNP constituency votes to the Greens on the list. And that suggests that John Swinney's strategy of vote in the constituency for the party, for the government, and vote on the list for independence, people haven't bought into that strategy.
But does that also mean, Kirsten, that rather than be compensated for losing a constituency seat by gaining a list seat, that might not work out for the SNP? Or will they still pick up, for example, Angus Robertson's out, does that mean Tommy Sheppard definitely comes in on the list?
Well, we don't know yet because the numbers will tell, and we can do the DeHont calculations.
With Droop.
Listen, if we've got to fill till 9 o'clock tonight, we will do that later. I want to bring you in here, Paul, because you know a thing about advising Prime Ministers. You advised Gordon Brown. What would you be advising Prime Minister Keir Starmer this weekend? Does he need to go?
I think it is time. There's no question he's not going to lead the party into the next general election, so he needs to go with a bit of dignity. But I have to say, there is no question that Starmer's unpopularity would always have prevented Anas Sarwar from winning. But I just don't think on this Labour campaign, had there been a more popular leader at UK level, we would have won this campaign.
You don't think so?
Jackie Baillie talks about an ambitious programme for change. Like the rest of the Scottish public, I missed it. And I think you need to actually come up with policies rather than just scroll synonyms like change, clean up the mess, fix the basics. There has to be a real thing. I mean, Ramsay earlier was making the point that the Western Isles was won on an actual issue.
An actual issue, the ferries.
And that's because it was more than just words. It was actually something the Labour Party was trying to do. Everywhere else, it was just shoveling words. I've no idea what the Scottish Labour Party were going to do with the NHS or with education or with the economy. You need to do a little bit more, and particularly what's odd about it is in July 2024, with a huge lead, Keir Starmer didn't want to give away too many policies, too many targets, so he just said change. And over the last 2 years, one of the reasons why Labour's in such trouble is people haven't liked the fact that it's incoherent change. So why, 2 years later, the Scottish Labour Party offers exactly the same message that the people of Scotland have rejected Keir Starmer for baffles me.
What do you think happens to Anas Sarwar next?
I suspect what will happen, I think Bernard is right, that there will be some kind of challenge. I suspect what he will do is he will come behind somebody like Wes Streeting or Andy Burnham so that he can blame Keir Starmer for this defeat. But I'm sorry, he could have stopped him winning. The scale of this defeat, the Scottish Labour Party's got to take some responsibility for that.
Paul Sinclair, Ramsay Jones and Kirsten Campbell for now. Thank you very much. And we're going back to Glasgow. Martin.
Rebecca, thanks very much indeed. Strong thoughts there from Paul Sinclair. I wonder what Gary and his guests make of it all. Gary?
Well, let's find out, Martin, because we're joined by Daniel Johnson, of course, one of 3 Labour MSPs to be elected on the constituency. Congratulations on your result. But overall, things have not gone your party's way. What went wrong?
I think we set out, despite what Paul's saying there, actually quite an ambitious and detailed plan for change. I think we perhaps failed to communicate some of that detail, and ultimately, I think people are really very frustrated with politics. They've been frustrated at the pace of change, and they've clearly opted to go in different directions.
Did your party also miscalculate? Did you misread, perhaps, the 2024 general election in terms of doing very well in Scotland at the SNP's expense and think that perhaps those people who lent you their votes from the SNP were still going to do so this time round?
No, I don't think so. I think, though, that there was a big promise of change in the 2024 general election. And I think perhaps what we need to reflect on is what we could have done and should have done to actually really demonstrate that we could be trusted to carry forward that promise of change despite some disappointment. But, well, I mean, clearly there's disappointment. I think that's, it would be
Well, disappointment's putting it mildly. I mean, Michael Shanks was here earlier, government minister. He said, your party needs to speed up delivery.
Absolutely.
But why has it taken 2 years to reach that point? And the outcome today, and not just here in Scotland, but in Wales as well, where the governing First Minister has lost her seat.
So, look, I mean, partly that, because government is complicating the scale of some of the challenges, but I think nonetheless, people really wanted some early evidence. And I think the other thing is about the clarity of direction. I think people out there get that it's complicated, get that it's difficult, but they need to understand why the decisions being made now are going to arrive at something better. I think my UK colleagues, you need to think about how to communicate that better.
Is the way of dealing with that a change at the top? Does the Prime Minister have to go, or at least, as we were hearing there, perhaps set out a timetable?
Genuinely, I think we need to be really careful, because I think absolutely people are frustrated, but they're also, I think, really scunnered with political psychodrama. If you treat politics like a soap opera, I don't think people are very happy with that either. So I think we do need to digest this result. I think we need to understand the level of disappointment and frustration and deal with that. I don't think kind of making this a sort of a personality contest is very helpful towards actually looking at that fundamental issue that we need to address.
I want to talk a little bit about the makeup of the Parliament. Jeremy Purvis, we know, well, at least we forecast that the SNP will not reach 65, the majority figure, so John Swinney will have to govern as a minority. Where do the Liberal Democrats come into all of that?
Well, the first thing, we start from a much higher base than we entered into this campaign. In fact, we've done far better than many of the pundits, including some of the BBC commentators said we would. We're going to end up with the second party of constituencies in the Scottish Parliament. And that is a great achievement for Alex Cole-Hamilton. In the capital, in the central belt, and I think we're going to do extremely well in the Highlands. We are going to use the mandate that we have for people giving a positive vote to the Lib Dems to ensure that the issues that people are really focused on, which is about the cost of living, access to GP services, care services, rural transport, all of the issues where I think people have been frustrated with the lack of delivery by the Scottish Government, by the SNP government, then that has to be the focus. And we will not be involved in some of the constitutional shenanigans, which will distract. And I think the fact that we're the only party other than Reform that have grown our percentage in the constituency vote, the Greens have flatlined, and it shows that there are people who are hungry for that kind of approach in the Scottish Parliament. When I was an MSP, almost exclusively, it was about services, services, services. Now, in recent years, it's been about the Constitution. Folk are fed up of that, and they want it focused on services and delivery.
Well, we don't have the full picture yet, Jimmy Maguire from Reform, but it may well be that your party does very well on the list. You have a substantial number of MSPs. Do you work with the SNP in that certain circumstance?
No, we're not working with any party. We are there to challenge the system. We realise that the system isn't working now. It's not working for people. We're looking at taxation. It's the highest taxation in the whole of the UK. We're looking at public
But do you think that
services
people
which are
voted for
broken.
you just to oppose for the sake of opposition?
No, because they're looking at us as an alternative. So the first step is being opposition and then moving into government in the next Scottish Parliament election, and we will show the Scottish people that they were right to put their faith into Reform UK, because we will offer that genuine alternative.
How difficult or otherwise, Angela Constance, will the next 5 years be for John Swinney at the helm, given, as we know, there is a potential big fiscal hole coming, £5 billion potentially by the end of the Parliament, which wasn't really addressed during this election campaign?
Well, the Scottish National Party has led the Scottish Government successively in 4 parliamentary terms, is perhaps now about to embark upon a 5th one. We are ultimately a party that represents all of Scotland. We are a truly national party. We haven't focused on 10 constituencies or 6 constituencies or just a list. We have focused on winning everywhere in Scotland, and 55 constituencies to go into a 5th term of leadership is a significant win for John Swinney.
But how do you deal with those problems that are coming down the line? Because there's been no answer to those questions yet.
Well, there are some issues that will be for Parliament as a whole, and every SNP, MSP will work hard to deliver on our manifesto.
Harriet Cross, do the Conservatives now have a duty to try to work with the SNP, if they are the largest party, in terms of trying to deliver what the people want?
I'd say 2 things on that. Firstly, for the last few parliaments, we have been the opposition, and we've been an incredibly strong opposition, largely the only party to stand against some of the most awful policies that the SNP have brought forward, whether that was the deposit return scheme, gender recognition, really standing up for actually what Scotland said it wanted.
But do we need some positivity this time round in terms of voting for something rather than voting against everything?
Despite what was trying to be pushed through the Parliament. We want to work for a better Scotland. We want to work for a Scotland that encourages aspiration, which is low tax, which is high achievement. If other parties want to do that, then of course we will help them. But I'm not sure the SNP want to do that. I'm not sure Reform want to do that. I'm not sure particularly what the Lib Dems and Labour want to do either. What we want, we're very clear about. We had a fully costed manifesto. We want to get the tax burden down. We want to get spending under control.
So do you work with Reform on that?
And that will allow Scotland to achieve more. Reform didn't want to cut spending. They were very clear. They didn't want to, because they had to keep half of their voters on side. So it's not clear that they want that either. We'll work with people who have a proper plan to get Scotland working, but it's not clear at the moment who that is.
Well, it might feel a little bit like it's business as usual after this election. Thank you all very much for the moment. Let's head back to Martin.
Gary, thanks very much indeed. As Gary and his guests were talking, we saw some of those famous peach ballot papers being counted, I think in Alloa, wasn't it? They are counting furiously. We expect perhaps the first regional declaration sometime fairly soon, but as Douglas Ross was suggesting, it may be a while, maybe into the evening before we get all the results from everywhere. Listen, just in terms of our planning for the immediate future, it is now 26 minutes past 6. In 4 or 5 minutes' time, Reporting Scotland, an extended Reporting Scotland, will come on BBC One. But we're moving over with our guests onto the BBC Scotland channel. We're going to stay with this, of course. You would expect us to, and we will. So we're moving over to the BBC Scotland channel while you watch the especially extended Reporting Scotland in about 5 minutes. We'll do that in more detail when it comes. Let me turn back to my panel here, though. Lynn Davidson's joined me, former Conservative Special Advisor, among other jobs, former journalist as well. Let me talk to you about the cost of governing, the kind of the price you pay for incumbency. Normally, Labour are paying the price of that after 2 years. Why doesn't that apply to the SNP?
I mean, well, look, we've heard talk about lucky generals and being charged timing, it not being a good time. We heard the Reform Scottish leader earlier talking about it not being a good time for reform. You could say the same for Russell Finlay, the Scottish Conservative leader, quite new in the job. It's fallen very well for SNP. But look, Anas Sarwar, I felt very sorry for him earlier. You know, for 5 years, he's been throwing everything into this, thinking he was a shoo-in for this job. And then really, you could say, apart from perhaps a few tactical errors in the campaign, or maybe he might have done things a little bit differently, but essentially, it's been the Westminster government in Keir Starmer that has done for him. And there was a time when incumbency might have favoured you. Bernard, you might remember those times, but it just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And we have that voter volatility now and that flipping between parties and people taking last-minute decisions.
But I mean, incumbency hasn't harmed the SNP, despite the fact that their popularity is down at, what, 25%?
I don't think there's been an offer that's attracted anyone. The Greens, I think the Greens, out of everyone in Scotland, had an offer, at least the free bus travel, for example. At least there was an offer on housing, the renewables and the offshore energy proposals had a bit of pizzazz, at least, and something new to attract those kind of, we were talking earlier down in the green room about hipster areas and university towns to capture, don't choke,
I'll try.
capture the attention of voters there. But really, I think people, I suppose, thought, well, maybe we just keep going with what we've got. There's not anything else to attract us.
Yeah, it was the mention of hipster towns, I think, that got me.
Yeah, Jim Callaghan in 1979, after Margaret Thatcher won that seminal election, saying that there was nothing I could have done. And people used to say, you should have gone to the country in the autumn of 1978 and it would have been all different. And he said, every once in a while, there's change in the air and you can't stand in the way of it. But you're right to pose the question. We're now 19 years into SNP government. We're going to have another 5 years. They're almost rewriting the rule book of politics. I was with a senior nationalist, having a drink with a senior nationalist the other night, and he said to me, he said, look at what's happened in the last 5 years. We haven't really delivered in the health service. We haven't really delivered in education. The ferries fiasco has been a disaster. People have been resigning from the government because of sleaze issues. We've lost 2 First Ministers in the last Parliament. We've had the salmon sturgeon fallout. We've had the police crawling all over the internal finances of the SNP. What do we have to do to lose?
What did he put it down to?
It didn't put it down to anything in particular. I think, essentially, I come back to the point. It is difficult for a unionist party to run a Scottish campaign if there's noise from south of the border which cuts through the offer that they're attempting to make. This is on Keir Starmer. If there was a Scottish election that took place at the point when Liz Truss would have been Prime Minister, then any fall in the Conservative vote would have been on her. The SNP don't have to look over their shoulder. They just don't have to look over their shoulder. And, the Liberal Democrats, modest recovery tonight, but they were in the doldrums for 15 years because of a decision that was taken south of the border.
All right, Bernard, thank you very much indeed for that. So we're approaching that time. If you're watching us On BBC One Scotland, we are about to give way to Reporting Scotland, a specially extended edition of Reporting Scotland. If you want to stay with me, with all of our guests, with these panels and with the results as they happen, just move over to the BBC Scotland channel and we will be on there right now.
Tonight, the constituency results are just about in.
And it's clear the SNP have won an historic fifth successive Scottish election.
They will be the largest party in Holyrood, but fall short of a majority.
To take it to the position where I expect us to win the election today is a moment of enormous significance for me, and one from which I take enormous personal assurance and joy.
So a good day for the SNP, but the same can't be said for Labour.
So I think this election, to be honest, was about a general dissatisfaction with politics. And sadly, there was a national wave in terms of that disappointment, and that's a national wave we failed to overcome.
The Scottish Labour leader conceded after a handful of results had been declared.
It was smiles all round for the Green Party. They took 2 constituency seats from the SNP, one previously held by the former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, the other from a former Cabinet Secretary.
And in other news today, a drunk driver has admitted killing a teenage passenger and seriously injuring her friend after offering them a lift from a taxi rank in Perth.
And in sport, can Hearts extend their lead at the top of the Premiership before the Old Firm face off for the final time this season? We'll look ahead to another significant weekend in the title race. Hello, I'm Laura Miller.
And I'm Laura Goodwin. Welcome to Reporting Scotland. It promised to be an election that could disrupt the political order and galvanise questions about Scotland's future. With most of the counting done, the picture of the Scottish election 2026 is starting to look clearer. The SNP, as predicted, looked to be the biggest party in the Parliament, but leaving it short of the overall majority, that magic number of 65.
The Greens and Reform have made some big gains with this vote, mainly at the expense of the Conservatives and Labour, but with some surprises along the way. In this specially extended edition of Reporting Scotland, we will have reports and analysis from our correspondents around the country. But we start tonight with our political editor, Glenn Campbell, who has the story of the day.
By the time of his arrival at the Count Centre in Perth with his wife Elizabeth, John Swinney knew the SNP would win the election across Scotland, not just in his own constituency.
John Ramsay Swinney, Scottish National Party, 16,414.
We are at the very early stages of the election count across the country, but it is becoming clear that the Scottish National Party is going to emerge as the largest party in this election campaign. And to take it to the position where I expect us to win the election today is a moment of enormous significance for me, and one from which I take enormous personal assurance and joy.
He was careful to say largest party rather than to predict the overall majority he'd set as the SNP's target, something that may well be beyond his reach. By this stage in Glasgow, the Labour leader had all but conceded defeat.
My party is hurting, we're disappointed, we advocated for change, we didn't win that argument, but it's my job to hold us together, and that's a job I intend to do, and we will continue to fight for the change we believe Scotland so desperately needs. I don't believe the SNP will win a majority in this election campaign. I don't believe this election was about independence. I think this election, to be honest, was about a general dissatisfaction with politics. And sadly, there was a national wave in terms of that disappointment, and that's a national wave we failed to overcome.
In the Western Isles, some consolation for Labour, where they took the seat from the SNP. Reform UK's leader was disappointed to finish third in Inverclyde.
I personally said I wanted to win constituencies, and we're just not getting the breakthrough in the constituencies. Maybe it's just come a bit too quick for reform, and this time around, I think there's a strong vote for reform. We'll see what happens in the regional list. But as I say, we haven't made the breakthrough in the constituencies that I was hoping for.
Reform came closest to a constituency win in Bamshire and Buchan Coast, and the party has arguably wrecked the Conservatives' chances in numerous seats, including Eastwood.
Jackson Carlaw, Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party, 11,990.
That was not enough for this former Conservative leader to hold off the SNP. Just one example of Tory frustration.
We've already lost, potentially, strong Conservative voices, pro-UK voices in the Scottish Parliament because of the actions in reform in the North East, in Aberdeenshire, in Eastwood and potentially in Ayr. So I think what this talks to is what we warned of and what I was warning of here, which is that a vote for reform basically hands seats that should be in pro-UK hands to John Swinney.
But not everything has gone the SNP's way.
Lorna Slater, Scottish Green Party, 12,600.
The Greens won their first ever Holyrood constituency, defeating an SNP cabinet minister in Edinburgh Central.
Thank you to everyone who voted Scottish Green yesterday. I'm grateful for your trust in me and your trust in our vision for a fairer and greener Scotland.
In Glasgow, the Greens also took what used to be Nicola Sturgeon's patch from the SNP. For the Liberal Democrat leader Alex Cole-Hamilton, a mood of celebration. Despite losing Shetland for the first time in 27 years, the party has won Edinburgh Northern and Strathkelvin and Bearsden.
Adam Harley, Scottish Liberal Democrats, 15,697.
Obviously, we've had a difficult announcement in Shetland, but no, I think, we have been very clear about our targeting strategy, and when you look at those 10 constituency seats that we were targeting, I think a number of them are going to come in our direction.
Counting continues across the country, with dozens of regional list seats yet to be declared.
And our political editor, Glenn Campbell, joins me now. Glenn, we've been talking about this election for weeks, months, speculating. What did the polls get right and what did they miss?
Well, the trend in the polls said that the SNP was out in front, and they were absolutely right about that. The SNP is finishing in first place, is best placed to form the next government. And that's pretty extraordinary after 19 years in power for the party to be set for a fifth term in office in charge of all that the Scottish Government oversees. Personally, you heard John Swinney say this mattered a lot to him because he actually, in his 2 times as party leader, has led the party into 5 campaigns where there have been national votes across Scotland. He's lost every other time. This is big for him because he's finishing on top. Not achieving, it would seem, the goal that he set himself for that overall majority, but perhaps a little bit short of that. Able, it would seem, depending on the outcome of the regional lists, to work with a party like the Greens to pursue the independence agenda if he so chooses. But as leader of a minority government, he could be working with all parties individually or collectively to get things through. He doesn't need to have that overall majority to run a government.
And let's dig into that a little bit more, because as you say, the SNP didn't hit that 65 that John Swinney had said would sort of lay a pathway towards a second independence referendum. You mentioned the Greens there. What do you think will happen now?
The Scottish Greens, I think, are on course to have a very, very good result. Obviously, they're already winning their first constituencies, but the level of support that they're achieving in this election suggests that they're also going to do very well on the regional lists. That is also where Reform UK will start picking up its first seats, having caused havoc for some of its rivals in other pro-union parties by preventing them winning seats or seeing off challenges from the SNP. Labour is having an absolutely rotten result. That was acknowledged very quickly by Anna Sarwar, although he says that it's his job to hold things together. And just speaking to a senior figure in the party a short time ago, it seems that he is determined not to just to continue for a short while, but to continue for a longer period as leader of Scottish Labour. I think the Lib Dems are obviously having mixed results. Overall, they're going to be up on where they were 5 years ago, and for them that's a cause for celebration. But bittersweet, given that they've lost Shetland, which has been Liberal of one kind or another for as long as anyone can remember. The Conservatives, let's see how they do on those regional lists, but obviously they're going to be nowhere near being the second party, much further down. It could be that we end up with Reform in second place, Labour not better than third, I don't think.
OK, Glenn, many thanks indeed. It's been a busy day, so we appreciate your time. Thank you.
OK, here is a recap then of how the picture looks across Scotland. The SNP with by far the largest number of seats and a dominant election victory. These are the numbers then on the board so far, but behind these numbers there were individual dramas. Let's look first then at Edinburgh Central. As we've heard, it was a historic Green gain for its candidate, former co-leader Lorna Slater, winning the party's first ever constituency seat, increasing the party's vote share there by 29%. She beat the SNP and Angus Robertson, who was a cabinet secretary in the last government. Their vote share down by 17%. But better news for the SNP in Shetland, where it took a seat which has spent 27 years in Lib Dem hands, very much a traditional stronghold. The swing from the Lib Dems to the SNP here was 10%. Another seat that got a lot of attention over the day was Banffshire and Buchan Coast, a big target for Reform. They won 34% of the vote there, but lost out narrowly to the SNP.
Well, let's focus on Labour's performance. Almost 2 years on from a landslide victory in the general election, this has been a bruising result across the UK. They've lost hundreds of councillors in the English local elections and conceded defeat in Wales. Throughout this campaign, Scottish leader Anna Sarwar had looked to distance himself from the Prime Minister. But after just a handful of results, he admitted that votes hadn't gone his way, blaming a national wave of disappointment. Here he is speaking at the Glasgow count a little earlier.
This is clearly a disappointing result for us as a Scottish Labour Party. We argued the case for change, made the argument for change, but ultimately it's an argument we lost. But I want to say thank you to our fantastic candidates, our activists and all those people right across the country who vote for us and voted for us in this election.
Do you blame the Prime Minister?
Look, throughout this election campaign, I have tried to make this election about Scotland. I'm not going to change that today. Is there a national wave, though, that we tried to overcome but failed to do so? Yes, but right now my focus is on what this election means for Scotland.
Should he take responsibility? Does he need to take responsibility?
I said what I said back in February, and I stand by that, but I'm going to focus on what this means for my party here in Scotland. And my party is hurting today, and it's my job to hold it together.
Will you stay in post, Anna Sarwar?
My party is hurting, we're disappointed, we advocate for change, we didn't win that argument, but it's my job to hold us together, and that's a job I intend to do, and we will continue to fight for the change we believe Scotland so desperately needs.
Does the SNP have a mandate for Indie Rep 2, Anna Sarwar?
I don't believe the SNP will win a majority in this election campaign. I don't believe this election was about independence. I think this election, to be honest, was about a general dissatisfaction with politics. And sadly, there was a national wave in terms of that disappointment, and that's a national wave we failed to overcome.
Well, our political correspondent, Paris Grazianis, was in that huddle at the count in Glasgow. Paris, Anna Sarwar was very quick to admit defeat. Give us a sense of what the mood was like there, and where do you think this leaves him as leader of Scottish Labour?
Well, Laura, the Labour mood was bad from the start. It then got worse. The votes had barely started being counted when a Labour figure told me in colourful language that their result would be terrible. Then that dramatic concession from Anas Sarwar just after lunchtime. He refused to name or blame the Prime Minister, but other candidates were more willing. Paul Sweeney, former MSP and MP, said that the Prime Minister should no longer be in a job. And privately, multiple Scottish Labour MPs saying Keir Starmer should go, but only privately. One spoke of their frustration that a coup isn't materialising, saying that the UK cabinet is abdicating its responsibility to the country. As for Anas Sarwar's position, there is criticism of his decisions on the campaign to focus on constituencies, to put himself at the centre of that campaign, but there's also considerable sympathy too, a sense that he was dealt an impossible hand. There is no internal challenger to Anas Sarwar, and so, like Keir Starmer, he's saying he's staying.
And meanwhile, the Greens winning the Glasgow Southside constituency, vacated by Nicola Sturgeon.
That's right. Yeah, the Greens were always confident here of picking up at least one constituency, but until the final declaration of the day, Glasgow Southside, the word was that it was too close to call, but it wasn't close at all. Holly Bruce for the Greens won Glasgow Southside by over 3,000 votes, unseating the SNP minister Cóchab Stewart in the process. And we're obviously waiting on the regional list results. The Greens could end up with 3 MSPs from Glasgow. Now, Bruce and the Green co-leader Ross Greer told me that the reset of the balance of power at Holyrood means they'll make their case even more forcefully. So free bus travel, more support with childcare, and no new drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. That's going to be the price of Green support for the next SNP government.
OK, Paris, many thanks indeed.
Well, we can speak now to the leader of the SNP, John Swinney, who's live at Holyrood for us tonight. Good evening, Mr Swinney, and congratulations. The SNP is the largest party. No majority, though. How do you intend to proceed going into the next Parliament? Will there be deals to be done with the Greens, for instance, or do you intend to go it alone?
I'm delighted with the election result. I'm absolutely delighted that the SNP has won the election and will be the largest party by a very commanding margin over our rivals. And what I will now focus on is what I've focused on throughout all of my time as a minister, and especially as First Minister, of serving the people of Scotland and working to improve their lives. And of course, we'll wait till we see the full results that come out. They're not all out yet, but in whatever circumstances we face, I will be acting to serve the people of Scotland and to improve their lives.
You are predicted to be the largest party, but predicted not to have an overall majority. Before the election, you said that a majority would give you the mandate to seek another independence referendum. If you do not have a majority then, does that mean that you do not have a mandate to do that?
I obviously believe fundamentally in Scottish independence. It's at the heart of my political life and my aspirations for Scotland, and I'm certain there will be a pro-independence majority in the Scottish Parliament. So what Parliament has got to do in the years to come is to consider the aspirations of all parties, consider the aspirations of those who want Scotland to be an independent country, and I will want to do as much as I can to advance that agenda in the circumstances that we face. Because what for me independence is about having the means and the tools to improve the lives of people in Scotland, which is at the heart of how I take forward my responsibilities as First Minister.
This is the first election you've won as party leader. What does Swinneyism look like?
Well, what it means is cooperative politics. It means a respectful politics. People see how I go about my business. I go about my business in a courteous way to others. And at this particular moment, when people are feeling so sore and when things are so difficult, I think it's important that I make clear that I will be the First Minister for all of Scotland. I'll try to bring the country together. I've got colleagues who've been elected from the very north of Scotland, from the Shetland Islands. I'm delighted that we have won Shetland for the very first time ever. We've got colleagues the length and breadth of the country, and I will work with all parties and all individuals across the country to make sure we make Scotland as successful a country as we can be. So that is what Swinneyism is all about. It's about helping Scotland to be as good as Scotland can possibly be, to have ambition for our country, and that's what will dominate my term as First Minister over the next 5 years.
Does Swinneyism also mean that once the dust has settled on today, that tonight you might be trying to pick up the phone to the UK government to try to see how to proceed to secure an independence referendum?
Well, I'd like to enjoy a more cooperative relationship with the United Kingdom government. We have got to be partners. We've got shared interests. There has been a souring of relationships over the last 9 months with the UK government. It's all been about the politics of the election. Now, the Labour government has just been hammered in Scotland, and I hope that lesson is learnt in Downing Street, that there has now got to be respect for the Scottish government exercised by the UK government, so there's an understanding that people in Scotland want to make their own choices, and they don't want to have those choices undermined by the actions of a United Kingdom government that's not acting in the best interests of Scotland. So my message to Downing Street tonight is very, very clear. They have got a lot of listening to do to the fact that Labour have been hammered here in Scotland, and an SNP government, after 19 years in office, has just been emphatically returned to office, and Scotland needs respect as a consequence of that election outcome.
Well, Mr Swinney, it has been a busy day for everybody, especially for you. We appreciate your time tonight on Reporting Scotland. Thank you.
Now, it was thought Reform might pick up their first constituency seat in this election. That didn't happen, but they still could have a significant presence at Holyrood when we get the results of the regional lists. Reform came within touching distance of the Banffshire and Buchan Coast. The SNP candidate there, Karen Adam, won with a narrow majority of 364. Our reporter Ben Phillip has more from the North East.
Fraserburgh in Aberdeenshire. This fishing town is in the Banffshire and Buchan Coast constituency. A former seat of the late Alex Salmond, this area has historically been an SNP stronghold. That's despite the Conservatives running them close in recent elections.
But there was a new kid on the block this time around in Reform UK who very much saw this as a target area. Many polls had it too close to call, and they were right. The SNP just edging out Reform by 364 votes.
I'm quite happy about it, I must say. I much prefer SNP to Reform.
Did you vote then?
I did not vote, no.
Why not?
It's like the worst of evils. Like, none of them really appeal to me, if you know what I mean.
I'm disappointed that SNP gets in.
Why is that?
I was wanting Reform. I didn't like their policies.
I'm fairly happy with the result. I'm an SNP. No, I'm not an SNP supporter. I'm an independent supporter, so it suits me. May not suit a lot of people, but there you go.
Why do you think Reform, there's been such a surge in popularity for them here?
I'm not too sure, because again, a lot of the views that they've gotten didn't seem to align with what you would think folk would want, but at least they didn't get it.
The following candidate is duly elected to serve as a member of the Scottish Parliament for the Banffshire and Buchan Coast, Karen Adam, Scottish National Party.
During her victory speech, the SNP's Karen Adam questioned why so many people in her constituency had opted to back Reform.
We have to have a conversation because that was close, and we have to ask why. And we have to ask why people are feeling a bit delusional when it comes to politics, when they're feeling that they've been let down.
Reform UK is pleased with its performance in the North East.
We was expecting to get a slightly higher vote share across the region, but at the same time, where we've come from, just being a brand new party to the area, basically, we're very happy with what we've done.
Another hold for the SNP in Banffshire and Buchan Coast, but only just. This region continues to be a tightly contested battleground for political parties. Ben Phillip, Reporting Scotland, Fraserburgh.
Well, let's speak to our correspondent Andrew Kerr now, who is in Aberdeen for us tonight. Andrew, let's talk about the fortunes of Reform, then have predictions about their performance in this election. Do they bear out?
Yes, I think the predictions are broadly accurate, that there was that groundswell of support for Reform, but it wasn't just quite enough to get them over the line in Banffshire and Buchan. And it was interesting to hear, as Ben was pointing out, Karen Adams saying in her victory speech that actually it's probably maybe time for the traditional parties to start questioning why so many people are voting for reform. As an aside to this as well, also interesting to note that there's real Conservative fury in the North East. They see reform as splitting their vote and letting the SNP back in, splitting that pro-union vote. So there's real Conservative, palpable Conservative anger about that just now.
Well, one of the other big moments where you are in Aberdeen was when the SNP's Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn, won a seat. He's going to be heading to Holyrood.
Yes, and it was quite a big moment because Stephen Flynn is a big name at Westminster. That's how he became kind of politically well known in a way. And he's also tipped to be a future First Minister. So when he stepped into this hall, was it his first step on a potential path to power? But quite early on, we started to get indications from the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats that this was going to be a close-run battle. The Conservatives were snapping at his heels. In the end, his majority is just over 1,200. That sounds reasonably decent, but you might think that a man like that would be getting a bigger majority given the name recognition factor. So perhaps there's real anger here in the North East at the SNP about how people feel, how they've dealt with the oil and gas policy. I understand that Stephen Flynn will be going back to Edinburgh with a very clear message about oil and gas. And again, Conservative frustration at reform getting in there. They think splitting their vote. So actually, in a few weeks, at some point, there will have to be a Westminster by-election to replace Stephen Flynn as an MP. The Conservatives are licking their lips at that, and we'll all be back here in the same place.
Andrew in Aberdeen, thank you. Well, over in Edinburgh Central, the Scottish Greens made history by winning their first ever constituency, the first of two today, and ousted SNP heavyweight and former Cabinet Minister Angus Robertson, who slumped to third place. The former Green co-leader, Lorna Slater, won the seat with a comfortable majority of more than 4,500 votes over Labour. Robertson could be the highest profile casualty of the election, as David Cowan now reports.
The heart of Scotland's capital has witnessed political milestones on countless occasions. Today, another was added to the list. A big beast of the SNP slain by the former co-leader of the Scottish Greens, breaking new ground for her party.
What do you think made the difference during the campaign?
These guys. The number of doors they knocked. We had new volunteers out every day, multiple sessions every night. We've never run a campaign like it. This team stepped up.
Edinburgh Central has been politically promiscuous since devolution, starting with Labour, then shifting to the SNP, who were defeated by the Tories before Angus Robertson won the seat back. The constituency is diverse, with closely packed tenements, some of the wealthiest streets in Scotland, and communities where the cost of living will be an acute concern. Boundary changes made it a three-way marginal between the SNP, Labour and the Greens. Nationally, the SNP were heading towards their fifth election victory, but here they were pushed into third.
My own personal disappointment, of course, is I will not be there, but that's just the nature of politics. You have to take the rough with the smooth. It's not a guaranteed job for life.
I did vote for Lorna Slater, so I'm really pleased that she's won.
Why did you vote for Lorna Slater?
There's name recognition there. I recognised her. I've heard her speak before, and I've liked what she said.
A lot of people I know voted Green, so yeah, I guess I'm not that surprised, but it's still the sort of thing that you're just pleased to see it, yeah.
It's the first constituency seat they've won at Holyrood.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm very disappointed. I would prefer it to be the SNP.
The last thing Holyrood needs is the Greens.
Why? Why are you against them?
They have changed from being an ecologically orientated party to just an extreme left-wing party.
Edinburgh Central's new MSP believes a pro-independence majority at Holyrood should mean IndyRef 2.
Every time that there's a pro-independence majority in the Scottish Parliament should have the right to choose to hold a referendum on Scottish independence. And I don't really understand how parties who would deny us a referendum can call themselves Democrats.
Just over 2 years ago, Lorna Slater was a minister in the same government as Angus Robertson until the power-sharing agreement was brought to a sudden end by his party. It was a humiliating moment for the Greens. If she was looking for revenge, she certainly got it today. David Cowan reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Well, our political correspondent Lindsay Bewes is in Edinburgh for us tonight. Lindsay, a pretty good day for the Greens then?
Indeed, yes, this was one of the biggest moments of the day, a huge scalp for the Scottish Greens, who going into polling day saw Edinburgh Central as their best chance of securing that first ever constituency win at Holyrood. A huge loss for the SNP. Angus Robertson is a significant figure in the party, a former Westminster leader, a member of John Swinney's cabinet, and in fact the campaign director for the party in this election. Now, going into today, we were told it was going to be close, that three-way contest between the SNP, Greens and Labour. But fairly early on, it started to become clear that the Scottish Greens were likely to win the seat. And in the end, Lorna Slater secured an emphatic win, pushing Angus Robertson into third place. Now, he blamed boundary changes in the constituency partially for that result. But the Scottish Greens are saying they were able to energise and mobilise voters, particularly younger voters. And it's worth noting that here in Edinburgh as well, in another seat, the Edinburgh North Eastern and Leith seat, their candidate Kate Nevins, the Greens candidate there, managed to add a huge chunk to the Greens vote share to finish in second place behind the SNP. They're also expecting to do pretty well on the regional list here too.
And Lindsay, another interesting result in your area, the Lib Dems gained a seat.
That's right, yes. The Scottish Liberal Democrats had a good day here too. Their leader, Alex Cole-Hamilton, was returned in his constituency, adding to his vote share there. But they were particularly pleased, the Liberal Democrats, to win the newly created Edinburgh Northern seat. That was fiercely contested with the SNP, and in the end the Liberal Democrats came out on top. So it has been a good day here, a significant day here for the smaller parties, the Greens and the Lib Dems, a tale of those two parties if you like, and both of them could now potentially, as we've been hearing, be pretty influential in the next Parliament, depending on how the rest of the election results shape up.
Lindsay Bewes in Edinburgh, thank you.
So we were hearing earlier about the wider picture for Labour today. Now, one seat which they gained just last year in a by-election, only to lose it again to the SNP today, is Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse. Our reporter Sarah McMullen has been on the ground there speaking to people about why they voted the way they did.
When we arrived at the Edelwood Bowling Club, the signs of an election campaign were obvious. Politics, like bowls, requires precision and strategy to knock out an opponent. Mr. Russell is a regular here, but as we were to find out, there's not always a place for friendship when it comes to politics.
I'm quite pally with Davy, and to be honest with you, I didn't vote for him. It's friendship aside, I don't want to vote Labour. I don't think they're good enough for the country and what they can stand for. I would like basically I voted for reform because I need change.
Did you vote?
Yes, always vote.
Do you mind asking who you voted for?
Yes, Mr. Russell.
So he's been representing this area. Do you think he's been doing a good job?
He's been doing a great job.
Just after 4 o'clock this afternoon, the seat here was declared an SNP win, Labour out. We headed to the High Street to see what people thought of it.
We've just had the result in just now, and it's been SNP have won in this area. How do you feel about that?
Hellish. I don't want Scotland.
Are you happy with that result?
Yes. Probably best for Scotland that SNP win.
Do you guys mind if I asked you about the election?
I don't take
we never voted.
You never? Can I ask why?
I just don't believe in any of them, to be honest with you.
None of them are worth it.
Davy Russell is from Labour, so he's lost his seat.
Ah, Davy lost it? Oh no, this is not good news.
So he's lost his seat. So are you quite sad at that news?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I say, he was a very good politician.
Now that surprise Labour win from the Hamilton, Stonehouse and Larkhall by-election just less than a year ago gave Scottish Labour some real confidence heading into this Holyrood election campaign. But those voices of support here today were hard to find. What we did hear was a lot of apathy, a recurrent theme throughout this election campaign. We also heard quite a bit of support for reform and some real delight at that Alex Kerr SNP win too. But what is clear from speaking to people today after that result is that they want change and they want better, regardless of who's in power. Sarah McMullen, reporting Scotland.
Well, results are still coming in, and if you've lost track, don't worry, we've got someone who can help.
Absolutely, yes. I've been working on the election programme all day, and so has been my colleague David Wallace-Lockhart. He's been working with lots of fancy graphics, though, and he's going to take us through some now. David.
Well, here's where things currently stand. I'm going to step into our Holyrood chamber and talk you through the numbers. The SNP on 55 seats. They're comfortably going to be the biggest party, but we do think they'll fall short of a majority in this chamber, which of course requires 65 seats. And we can get into a bit of the whys in a second, but first let's look at the constituency map of Scotland. And as you'd expect, given those numbers we just talked about, lots of SNP yellow on it. We can turn that as well into something we call a hex map, which gives every seat in Scotland the same size, and that helps, distorts the geography a bit, but it helps maybe give a picture of who's done well. As you can see, once again, a lot of SNP yellow there. But remember, we've only really had part of the story so far, because we also have regional seats to come. This is the second vote Scottish voters get. A formula's applied to it that reduces the vote share of the parties who've done well in the constituencies that we just talked about. So when these seats get allocated, we'd expect to see the likes of Labour, the Greens, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, and of course Reform UK start picking up the bulk of their seats here. And because the SNP are doing so well in the constituencies, they'll struggle to pick up seats here. Now let's have a look at a few of the interesting results we've had so far. We'll start in Edinburgh Central, a big result here where the Greens got their first ever constituency. Former Green co-leader Lorna Slater unseating Angus Robertson, SNP Cabinet Minister. He actually sank into third place there. We're going to head north now to Shetland, where there was better news for the SNP, historic news actually for the SNP. It's a seat that's been Lib Dem since 1999, but the SNP had a much better result here. Hannah Mary Goodlad winning it for them. As I said, historic, a massive gain for the SNP, a seat that has always been Lib Dem until today. And what about Labour? Where are they in all of this? You'll have noticed there wasn't much red on our constituency map. And if we go to Rutherglen and Cambuslang, this is the sort of seat where Labour really, if they wanted to have any sort of resurgence today, would have had to be picking up. But as you can see, it's an SNP win. The SNP have actually increased their majority there. And if we have a look at vote share, what's quite interesting is Reform definitely picking up a bit of support there, perhaps hurting Labour slightly, but a fairly comfortable win for the SNP. And like I say, that's the kind of central belt of Scotland. SNP